Hello?
John Wetton?
That's right, yes.
Hi, this is Steve Harris calling from Tokyo.
Hi, Steve.
Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, you're very prompt.
I guess so. Actually, you're up very early. Is this your usual agenda here to...
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Oh.
I've got a gig tonight. I've got a show tonight in Amsterdam. And I've got to get a flight at 11 o'clock. So.
Oh, okay.
but no, I'm normally up at this time. In fact, I'm going to have a difficult time sort of adjusting to being back on the road again and performing at 10 o'clock in the evening.
So this is the first show of your tour?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's just the real touring doesn't start until the album is released on the 18th. But these are some shows that I already had put in. Which is it's Amsterdam Paradiso, which I've wanted to play for ages.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 shows in Holland, 1 in Germany, 1 in Belgium, and 7 in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then after that, there's a couple of shows in America, hopefully Japan, sometime after the album's released. I would think September, I don't know. But yeah, I'm looking forward to working right through till Christmas, I hope.
And you'll be working under the banner of...
John Wetton, yeah.
Pardon me?
Under the banner of John Wetton.
Just John Wetton.
Yeah.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
The list of questions here has been drawn up by a Japanese journalist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually an interpreter.
Yes.
And I've been faxed this, so I'll just run through this.
Okay.
The latest album, Archangel.
Yeah.
This comes out sort of on the heels of rumors of a UK reunion.
Yes, it comes out on the heels of the UK rumour. In fact, the rumour is a reality that it's not really a reunion. I'm making an album with Eddie Jobson, who's the keyboard player, who we used to be in the band together.
Right.
And I think there might be some guests on the record that are pertinent to the original band. But it's something that we started about 2 years ago. We continued about a year ago, and we still have a little bit more to do on it before it's finished. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, really for the last 6-7 years, I have been a solo artist. That's it. But I certainly don't mind doing other projects. And from the UK, when the opportunity to work with Eddie Jobson came along, I thought that this would be a good thing to do. It's excellent music, but I have a kind of solo slot as well. You know, that there are 2 strings to my bow.
Mm-hmm. And is the recording with Eddie Jobson, is that going under the UK name?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I see.
We just started working together 2 years ago, and we hadn't spoken for about 15 years. Not because of any animosity, just because our careers had taken us in completely different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And so we spoke again 2 years ago when I was living in California for a while, and we discussed the idea of working again together. As soon as we started working together again, it sounded like UK. So, you know, we looked around for an interested party and found one at Mitsubishi.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with Pony Canyon. We've got my solo stuff is with Pony Canyon. But yeah, I mean, this Archangel is the main event for me for this year, and maybe UK will be for next year.
Mm-hmm. I see. And what are some of the guests who I think you mentioned other people guesting in the UK project who?
Well, Bill Bruford has agreed to do it.
Uh-huh.
Anyone more than that? Well, the other person that has played on it is Francis Dunnery. Frank Dunnery from It Bites. So we'll have a good sort of sprinkling of our friends and guests on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as you say, the big project right now is Archangel.
Yeah.
The last one, Voicemail.
Yeah.
I guess you were touring at that time with
with the other guys from It Bites. Yeah.
Who? Let me see here. This is how is it that you changed your band members? Why aren't you still going to be touring with the other guys from It Bites?
Well, it's being a solo artist as opposed to being in a band. It's almost like you have your musicians for a while and you know that they'll be moving on. I mean, ultimately, most guys want to be in a band of their own, and even while they were playing with me, the other guys 2 years ago, they were doing shows on their own under a different name, which I don't know what it is. It changed every week. But I knew that I'd only have them for a certain amount of time. And then over the last 2 years, well, up until the last personnel change I had in the band was about a year ago. And since then it's been pretty stable. And we've done quite a lot of work as a unit. There's myself and 3 other guys, Martin Alford on keyboards, Billy Liesegang on guitar, and Thomas Lang on drums. And they're a good unit, and I hope that we'll stay together at least for the rest of this year.
How did you happen upon those 3 guys?
Oh, through a process of yes. As soon as I came back from Japan on the '94 tour, which was the voicemail tour, the gigs coming up in Europe, and there was a conflict with the other guys in the band who had gigs of their own. So I had to sort of change the band at that point. And I started doing demos for Archangel, doing studio work. And the guy that I was working with was Billy Liesegang, who I'd met through Trevor Horn, the producer. Billy ended up co-producing Archangel. And while we were working together, he introduced me to, as he said, a spectacular Austrian drummer called Thomas Lang. He said, "You've got to use this guy." So I said, "Now, how good can a drummer be?" Like, I played with a few good ones, and he said, no, he's really, really special. You've got to check him out. So he came down and we played together, and he is absolutely spectacular. That was the drum slots taken care of. And soon after that, Billy himself joined, and we went on the road, did a few gigs in Europe. And since then, and Martin, the keyboard player, I got through a mutual friend called Clive Nolan of a band called Pendragon, who recommended Martin to me. Martin he's with his own band, which is called IQ. And this is very incestuous, all this sort of English bands playing together. Well, actually European bands, because Thomas Lang is Austrian. Mm-hmm. Anyway, to cut a long story short, that was the band which we played our first gig as a 4-piece on June the 30th last year. And since then it's been the same band. We've been to Argentina and all over the place. And so I hope that band will be, this will be the stable band. It's pretty much the nucleus of what played on Archangel as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In spite of your impeccable prog credentials, you've always emphasized the fact that you prefer shorter pop songs.
Yes, I do, yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is, I mean, it seems like you're always involved with people of the prog persuasion, and you're always sort of affiliated with that strain.
Yeah, it seems like it's something that I can never shake off, nor would I want to. But as soon as you're cast in that mold, I mean, I was in the King Crimson lineup of 73, 74 with Robert Fripp and Bill Bruford, and one of the albums that we produced was an album called Red, which is the kind of template for prog rock. And during that period, I would submit a 4-minute song to the band, in which case on Red it was called Starless. The song was called Starless, and the song would end up being a sort of 11-minute epic. I would have provided the 4-minute song. See, so. Now I just provide the 4-minute song. It goes out as it is. Mm-hmm. So really, that prog, I think, is a kind of rather than a generic term for music, which has become sort of redundant as it's more like prog is more like an attitude towards arrangement. I think because a lot of the sort of formative prog stuff was arrangements of other people's songs. Mm-hmm. For instance, Yes doing America, or Vanilla Fudge doing Keep Me Hanging On. these were the kind of early days of prog music, and everybody doing Beatles songs. That was really what it was. And the prog bit was really an arrangement rather than the actual song. What a lot of people would do would be to take a 4-minute song and expand it to 11, 15 minutes. But in all the lasting prog bands, there's been a guy who is a songwriter. I mean, in Yes, it's John Anderson. In Jethro Tull, it's Ian Anderson. There's always someone who provides the song. Bands that don't have the songwriter don't tend to sort of hang around or be very memorable. So usually there's a guy coming up with the essence of the 4-minute song, and the rest of the guys are there and they just expand it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you about the latest incarnation of UK. Would it be a misnomer to use prog to describe what you?
Oh no, it's very prog. It's very it's very, very prog. I mean, there you have a perfect example of me coming up with like 3-minute melodies, and Eddie will spend hours, days, weeks in the studio, and when I come back to it, suddenly it's gone from 36 bars to kind of it's already a symphony. And his we work together in very short bursts, and then we'll go away and work apart for a while. But yeah, the music of UK is very, very progressive, but in the true sense of the word as well, in that we've used a lot of unusual things for rock band. We've used the Bulgarian Ladies Choir, which is, on paper it sounds ridiculous, but in fact we wrote all the music for one, the kind of, it's like the title track, but we don't have a title yet. It's, if it were a concept album, the concept will be hung around this track. It's about 13 minutes long, and it goes through about 4 or 5 movements. And the choir is an essential part of it. It adds it's structurally, chordally, and melodically at the heart of it. In fact, a lot of the melodies are written around that kind of Eastern European scale, and it's quite eerie when you first hear it. The combination of industrial drums, electric guitar, and the Bulgarian Ladies Choir is quite awesome. It's extraordinary. I don't even sing until about 6 minutes into the side, But it's wonderful. It's really, really good. Whether it's commercial or not, I have no idea. But it's really good, and it's certainly not what people will be expecting.
Well, I think one of the amazing things about all the people who have been associated with prog is the fact that you're all still sort of bonded. You're always cooperating with one another, sort of
at the hip.
What's that?
At the hip, yeah. They're joined.
That's right. Always sort of orbiting in and out of each other's
that's right.
universes there. And I guess maybe you fit into the equation because you do provide the kernel, the seed, if you will.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of other guys in the same group who expand on that.
Well, yes, that's right. And I learned when I was in my 20s that because of all the testosterone, you get into this muscle flexing as far as your instrumental technique is concerned. And really, I realized that wasn't going to last me a lifetime. So there were other areas of my firmament that I should develop, and that meant really I kind of looked at what my strong points were, and songwriting was probably top of the list. And the fact is that once you played for a few years in this kind of muscular fashion, it sort of loses its allure. You never lose it, but it doesn't really have the same satisfaction. And the true satisfaction for me lies in the composition and the songwriting.
How do you improve on your craft there? What do you do to stay fresh and creative?
Well, I don't know.
It just comes naturally?
I think it just happens, yeah. I mean, I'm conscious of writing all the time. I am always looking for subjects that people are talking about, what I'm reading about. just being on a plane or walking down the street or whatever, something will happen. And when I get to the end of a project, I think I'm never going to write anything again. You know? Every time it happens, that I just have this sort of creative exhaustion, and I think, well, that's it. I cannot write anything else. There's just nothing happening at all. And for about 2 weeks, I just go into this creative oblivion. And then suddenly, just bit by bit, gradually, rather not suddenly, gradually, bit by bit, it starts coming back. And I don't know what it is. It's just a desire to write down stuff that I guess other people will just see and not register, or they don't think it's important enough to log. But for me, it can be a melodic idea or a phrase of words, but things will just spark me into action.
Do you listen to a lot of stuff to stay current, or?
Well, current would probably be a misnomer. I don't listen to lots of modern stuff. It's funny though. I can usually get a kind of sixth sense about records that are going to do well, and I probably should be working in A&R, but you know, I can hear something on the radio and I can pick out the song that's going to do well as opposed to the one that won't. Sometimes things get through that elude me, but it's funny that there seems to be a kind of in whatever kind of music you listen to, there seems to be some sort of continuity about it in terms of its ear value or its commerciality, something that will appeal. And it doesn't matter whether it's Shostakovich or Don Henley, you know, that they have something in common as far as they will be transferring a real emotion to people.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that made me leave my previous band, which was Asia, which was I felt that the music there was it wasn't personal enough. It wasn't on a grand scale like King Crimson was, or UK. It was songs that were supposed to be personal that weren't. They would just balk at the last hurdle. They wouldn't quite get personal enough. And for me, I felt I wanted to go further and get a lot of my mental stuff, emotional and mental stuff out. And this required me leaving the band that I was in, because I felt that band would never do it. This was Asia.
Yeah. What about Asia was hindering the process? Why were the songs not quite reaching fruition?
I don't know, a certain emotional constipation maybe.
On your part or other guys?
Well, yeah. Well, I felt that while I was within the bounds of that band, that I couldn't really kind of express myself the way that I wanted to. I mean, there were no limits on my songwriting, none from outside anyway. But I just felt that I couldn't do it within the confines of that band.
Mm-hmm.
So around about, it was just at the end of 1990, beginning of 91, we were in South America somewhere, and I was playing the same old material again, and I looked out at the audience, and they were doing the kind of the metal fist salute, you know, and I thought, I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really, this isn't going to work for me when I get into my 40s, you know. I was just approaching, I might have just turned 40 at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, no, there's some sort of lack of dignity in it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that as soon as I started doing concerts on my own, I made an effort to start with acoustic guitar, start with a song that was just voice and acoustic guitar, and try to talk to the audience as opposed to shouting at them. I realized that's what I'd been doing the best part of 20 years, was standing there shouting at them, and I thought maybe they would like me to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I've been developing. And I feel 10 times more comfortable on stage than I used to. And I feel like I get I can actually stand there after a song and have a conversation with the audience. It's great. I mean, it's a miracle. I used to be so petrified of any kind of communication, which for a singer is very bad news.
Mm-hmm. So it was a major turning point.
Yes.
According to the questions here, I guess you're still doing a lot of songs from your past in your
Yes, I do.
performance.
I tried to do them as they were originally intended. In fact, if I go back and do a song from the past, what I'll do is I'll strip it down to its basic elements and present it the way that it was originally written, which I feel there is some sort of value in it rather than just trotting out the hit.
Yeah. So for example, when you do you don't ever do Starless, do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But
yes,
you strip it down.
Yes, it's a completely different way from the original. Yeah.
And it says here that you do. I talked to Wynn, but I guess you weren't in Crimson when that.
No, they've got a bit of time warp going there. In fact, what happened was just before Christmas, I did a tour with Steve Hackett and Ian MacDonald in Japan. And Steve Hackett was very keen to do other people's material. For instance, we did one of my solo songs, Battle Lines, one from Asia, which was Heat of the Moment, but done acoustically. And Ian MacDonald, when he was asked what he wanted to play, he wanted to do two songs from the original King Crimson album, which he has every right to play because he wrote them. But someone had to sing them, and I was the prime candidate. So that's possibly where the confusion has come with that song particularly, in that I was playing in a band with Ian MacDonald, and we did those two songs.
You mentioned Battle Lines. Actually, wasn't Battle Lines supposed to have been the title of Voicemail?
It did. It was everywhere else except the Pacific Rim. It was the title track of the album. The reason for that is that it was released in Japan first under the title Voicemail, and when I came back to the UK, there's a friend of mine who's a film producer, and he called me up and said, "Okay, I've been waiting 2 years for this record. Send it to me. I want to hear it." And I got a phone call about 2 days later saying that he was doing this movie, which was it's a movie it's a historical film about movies, about battles. And it was about the last battle that was fought on British soil, which was the Battle of Culloden in 1745, and which is the subject matter of Braveheart, but about a year before, unfortunately. Anyway, he'd heard Battle Lines, decided that he wanted that to be the title track, or the main title theme for the movie, and so his company put the record out in the UK alongside the film. So obviously, to capitalize on the movie, the album's title was changed to Battle Lines to fit in with the film. And whenever it was released anywhere else, the local company would have the choice of releasing Voicemail or Battle Lines.
I see. Okay.
So in a lot of territories, it ended up being Battle Lines.
And after the release of Voicemail / Battle Lines,
yes,
you put out 2 live albums, didn't you?
I did indeed, yeah. Well, the story behind that was that when I was in Japan, the last show I was playing, well, it may have been the penultimate show. I did 3 in Tokyo, and the second show I was doing an interview after the show, and the guy said, "Well, it's going to be a great bootleg. I'm looking forward to this." And I said, "What?" He said, "Oh, for sure, yeah, there's going to be a bootleg of this tour." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, probably about 3 months' time there'll be a live album out." And I said, okay. Well, we'll see what we can do about that. So I took the live tapes from all of the shows when I got back. And within about a month, I'd compiled and resequenced a whole set. And I decided to put it out in Japan just to kind of to put an obstacle in the bootlegger's way. But in fact, it stood up as a record on its own merits. Pony Canyon got behind it, and it was released as an official Pony Canyon release. So it did okay, and everywhere else in the world followed suit. It was, in fact, it was easier to get a deal for that record than it was for Voicemail Battle Lines in America.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
it was
interesting.
extraordinary. If you cast your mind back 10 years, a live album would have even got arrested, you know. But it seems now that people are more interested in real music, and that trend has been reversed. You know, the trend towards synthetic digital music. Maybe digital is the wrong word, but over studiofied, antiseptic, you know, clinical music is kind of gone a bit by the wayside, and people want to get back to more sort of realistic playing. So yes, there was also another record called Acoustica, which was never officially released. It's just it was a kind of fan-based thing. I did an acoustic tour in 1995, and it was the same thing. It was reaction to people who said, "When can we get the live acoustic album?" And I said, "Well, I don't have any plans for one." They said, "Oh, you must, you know." And enough people said it, and so I put out a kind of limited edition CD called Acoustica, which was basically an acoustic version of Chasing the Dragon.
Well, you have such a devoted sort of cult following that I guess that no matter what you put out, there's going to be an audience for it somewhere.
Well, I think there is a limit to what I can put out. I mean, I think another live album at this point would be okay, enough. Let's have a studio album, please. You know, I think you have to be careful, but yes, to a certain extent, there is a core audience that will buy most of the stuff.
And I guess that has always been, especially the case in Japan.
Japan's always been a very good market for me. Been very kind to me. Whereas a lot of other markets in the world are quite fickle. Japan has remained absolutely rock solid behind me. I'm very grateful for that.
One reason, I guess, is that there are quite a few prog fans here who are completists and demand anything and everything that you put out. Are there any other countries in the world like that where you sort of have these bastions of prog devotees?
Yes, there are quite a few pockets in South America. Holland is a good one. Parts of Germany and places like Poland, Czech Republic, Italy. Yeah, there are lots of places that are prog-minded, and in fact, artists like me sometimes survive just on those enclaves.
Yeah, well, it was interesting to hear that when Robert Fripp reformed Crimson, the first shows they played this time around were in Argentina.
Yeah, well, Argentina is unbelievable. There are about six stores in Buenos Aires who just specialize in prog rock between 1970 and 78.
Oh my!
Yes,
amazing.
One of them is called the Crimson King, and that's all they stock. They just stock artists from those years. It's unbelievable. And that's dedication, you know. You're lucky if you find one store that stocks those artists in Britain. You know, most of the high street record stores will only stock top 20.
And that's not in Brazil, not in Paraguay or Uruguay, but only in Argentina.
Only in Argentina, yeah. No, Brazil is much more pop orientated. I mean, I think their sort of parameter is Queen and Bon Jovi, that sort of thing. I mean, that's why Asia could tour in Brazil. But Argentina is much more dedicated to the first generation prog stuff.
Interesting. Now, Archangel, is this the interviewer here gets the impression that it seems to be an album that wants to encompass most of the facets of your career so far.
Yeah, It's quite daring for me. It's a lot more daring than voicemail, because I didn't. I've sort of found my feet, really, in terms of, as I said earlier, I feel comfortable with myself and what I do now, and I feel able to make certain moves that I would not have felt comfortable with before. And I don't really see that it. No, maybe. I mean, I am just a product of my previous years. You know, that's what's coming out now is an amalgamation of a lot of things that I've been through. So in that respect, he's right. But I feel that when I was making voicemail, I had a producer and a record company breathing down my neck all the time, keeping me within the bounds of what they saw as being palatable. And this time I didn't have that at all. I just had complete free reign in the studio, and what's come out is absolutely me. Yeah, it's very much it has a lot broader range. It goes from orchestral to acoustic to heavy rock, which for me is quite daring, considering that voicemail was really hammered between two rails, and practically all the songs were treated exactly the same way. So this marks quite a departure for me.
Why did you have that latitude this time around and not last time?
Because I'm fortunate enough to have Pony Canyon gave me complete carte blanche on this record. They produced the record, but they didn't have artistic control. They let me have complete artistic control, which demonstrates a great degree of trust for them, which is wonderful.
I don't know if the interviewer screwed up the spelling here, John, but both Acoustica and Archangel have kind of odd spellings with K in them, and are these spellings correct?
The spellings are correct, yes. Yes.
Why is Acoustica spelled this way, and why is Archangel spelled this way?
Just the way that I like to see it. It gives a kind of personality, I suppose, for me. That I would feel a little bit nervous if it was spelt the other way, Archangel particularly, because it would give it a heavy kind of religious overtone, which it doesn't have. It has more spirituality than religion involved in it. In fact, a lot of the lyrics are, they talk about stuff that happened to me when I was a kid, and it is quite a spiritual catharsis.
Why Archangel? How did you happen upon that?
It happened to me. I was in Italy last year, and I was mulling over a song that I'd written with John Young, a piece of music rather that we'd written together, and we'd never really come up with a satisfactory home for this piece of music, and it just happened. I listened to it in exactly the right environment. It was in a very mountainous countryside, and I was just staring into space, and there was a thunderstorm that just happened, and it was that very peaceful moment after the thunderstorm stopped and the rain has stopped, when everything is fresh, and I just slipped. The lyric just kind of appeared in my head, and I got the different twist on it, and Archangel seemed to be, out of all the titles that I had coming towards me, Archangel was just leaping out at me. But as I say, it's not Archangel in the traditional sense of it. It's not the there are allusions to being a savior and stuff, but it's not the kind of church. Because my brother is a church musician, he's classical and he's a choir master and organist in a church. I have an enormous amount of influence from that sphere of music, but I shy away from the conventional concept of religion, which is a difficult one because in my brother's world it's all wound into one. So for me it's a totally different thing. Spirituality and music are closer, but religion and music have very little to do with each other as far as I can see. But for him it's very much, church and music go together.
I guess in retrospect, you can kind of pick out the various elements or common threads that the songs share in common. But did you go into this record with no set concept?
Oh, I had it kept on changing. As soon as I finished the last studio album, Voicemail, I started thinking about this one, and it was very much a matter of, wow, I wish I hadn't had those restraints. Then I could have got on with this real album sooner. And if I'm not dismissing Voicemail as not a real album, because it is, but it was very much I was being molded in another direction, so molded into another form. So the songs were the same, but I don't know. We had 45 songs to choose from Voicemail, and we ended up with 10. So there are a lot of them that were discarded, and I felt that they really shouldn't have been discarded. But anyway, nothing is really wasted in music. You always find a home for it somewhere. But a lot of the stuff on Archangel was written from scratch, completely new songs, new pieces of music. Only a couple of them came from the past. So, where was I? What was the question?
About the lack of a set concept at the outset.
Oh yeah, yes. Right. So a lot of ideas were formulated, and a lot of them went by the wayside, in fact. But the one constant throughout the whole thing was this track, Archangel, which kept coming back and coming back and coming back.
And Robert Fripp guests on one song.
On the title track, in fact, yes.
You know, you go back a long way with Robert. Are you good friends with him, or just professional?
Yeah, we're real good friends. We're very good friends. We always have been. We knew that our friendship went before and after Crimson, and when we worked together, things are okay, you know. But I get on better with him now than I ever did when we worked in the same band. That's not to say that we won't work together in the future. We possibly will. But now we have a friendship. I mean, we speak at least once a week, I would say, and that
at least once a week.
Yeah, probably somewhere. Yes, yeah, I think so. Sometimes more. And there aren't many people that I stay in that kind of touch with. So yeah, we have a very good friendship. Yeah.
And but you don't really work. This was the first time you had worked with him in quite a while, I take it.
No, he played on Voicemail as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see yourself working with him from time to time in the future as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No doubt about it. Yeah.
There was a question here about the people from Dorset.
I grew up in Dorset.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, that's where the Fripp connection comes in. That's where we met.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, and are there other people from Dorset as well? Because the question is about whether you're still in good terms with other people from Dorset.
Yeah, well, I guess that means practically all of the first King Crimson were from Dorset.
Okay.
Also, Richard Palmer James, who was my writing partner for a long time, is from Dorset. Yes, I'm on very good terms with all the people from Dorset.
And there's a question here about whether you plan on forming a band-like band in the future rather than just a solo project. Is that
well, for the foreseeable future, Archangel's the only thing I can think of until next year when we'll finish the UK thing. But no, at the moment I don't have any plans. But I always allow myself to do one outside project a year. So that's it's possible. It's possible. Yeah.
What about Bob Marlette? Who exactly is he?
Bob, he's a friend of mine from California. He's a producer, writer that I met in California, and as soon as we sat down, we knew that we had something compatible, you know. But it hasn't happened a lot in my life, but only a few times. But certainly with Bob Marlette, we get on very well in terms of songwriting.
You're not working with him now, or?
Not at this moment, but he wrote. He co-wrote about 5 songs on Voicemail and 2 songs on Archangel.
Uh-huh. I see it. And you're not working. You're going to be working with him again in the future, or is that?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah, there's just a couple more questions here. We'll let you off.
Yeah, I've got a plane to catch. So
yeah. The guy wants to know what you think. I guess Asia is still active. What do you think of what they're doing now?
I try not to think about it. I don't really. It's not my cup of tea. I left for a good reason, and I rather would have preferred it that they would have knocked it on the head too. But Jeff decided to keep it going, and I suppose I've got to respect that. But doesn't mean I have to like it.
Okay, and the one last question here is, we may have covered this just for the record, why on earth are all you prog guys still hooked up together?
Well, I guess there was a bond that happened in the early 70s and late 60s that we can never really shake off.
Is it, actually, I guess one reason is there's a market for it. I mean, you guys are always going to have an audience.
It's something very special that happened. To go through that was rather like the kind of California in the 60s, and it's something that you never forget, really. Some great stuff came out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And still does.
It's kind of like deadheads, they're prog heads out there. They're just going to
That's right.
laugh it up, and the funny thing is, they're young ones as well.
Yes,
people
indeed.
who weren't even born yet.
Oh, there are guys that guys that come to our shows that weren't even born when King Crimson was being recorded. I've got to go, Steve. My wife is dragging me out of the door here. They're going to miss the plane.
I thank you for your time, John.
Thanks, Steve. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.